Okay, we're back. Now we're going to talk about part two of the art of bonsai display, matching a bonsai tree to a pot. So how do we find the correct pot for any given tree? There are some guidelines. Let's talk about them. The first thing let's talk about is color. We must have a harmony between the pot and the tree. The pot color is very, very important. Take a look at this tree. It's got a really interesting trunk and shape. Look at the color of the pot and the trunk. Look at how well they match. But it's not boring because it's broken up by the great moss, great foliage, and dead wood. It's a little bit of a trick. This is what they call a photo montage. This tree and pot were never together at any time. They're simply two different photographs that have been photoshopped together. If you have this capability, it's a really great way to figure out what pot would look great with any given tree. In general, earth-colored pots will work for any bonsai tree, but especially for strong trees, conifers, pines, junipers, yews. Use earth colors, the browns, the reds. Let's take a look at some examples. Wow, take a look at this old pine. It's in a strong colored earthenware pot, probably an antique. That is a fantastic looking combination. How about this one? Another pine. A totally different pot, but also very appropriate. Here's a very dynamic juniper. It's in a light brown stoneware, dark trunk with contrasting deadwood. It really gives a nice impression of movement in the sidewalls of the pot, kind of mimics the activity within the trunk. Now we have the more feminine fruiting, flowering, and deciduous trees. In these we can use glaze pots. Let's take a look at some examples of these. Whoa, this is a nice planting. You got winter berries, no leaves, bright red berries with a nice red, rosy red pot, sort of mauve in color. Very appropriate, very nice. Here we have an interesting planting, probably a ume, early flowering tree. And look at that drippy white glaze on that pot. They've matched the pot color to the flower. Now the glazes can be matched up with leaves, fall color, branches, trunks, but it needs some sort of connection between the two. When it comes to color, contrast can be very attractive. Let's take a look at some examples. Take a look at these two forests. The one on the top left has a white pot. You have a contrast between pot, soil, and trees. The one to the right is the exact same forest with a black pot. Doesn't the white pot look a lot better? Next, let's talk about accent plantings. They can also be put in glazed pots. The color of accent plants and pots are not nearly as critical as the main tree. Here you can let your creativity go wild. Let's take a look at one. Here's a nice little accent. Great glaze, little crackle. The flowers show a sense of spring. Very nice. Up next is the shape of pots. First off, let's use rectangles for formal masculine trunks. Let's take a peek. Whoa, look at this upright tree. Big old masculine trunk. Isn't the pot well suited to it? The pot has straight sides and straight angles. It's very nicely done. Here's another completely different looking formal upright, but a very nicely done pot combination. It's perfect thickness, perfect shape, perfect color. Next up are our informal uprights. or curved and feminine trunks. Let's use oval pots for them. Let's take a look at some. Ovals comes in many shapes. They're oval, but they have different lip styles. These are all great pots for the informal upright style. Nice. Look at this Stewardia. Is that a beautiful feminine trunk? Undulating, smooth. The pot is so perfectly placed underneath it. The color is right, the shape is right, the size is right. What a great example. Ovals are also good for forests. They give the impression of endless, vast space. Let's look at one. What a neat looking forest. This is a very large planting, but it looks like a miniature little forest indeed. What a great pot. Oval, long, very beautiful. Nice contrast. Perfectly matches the trunk. For accent plants, the shape of the pot can be almost anything, but try and keep it shallow. For accent plants, almost any shape will work, but in all cases, let's keep them shallow. It gives the impression of being grounded to the earth. Here's a couple examples of great accent plantings, shallow pots, very pretty. Next stop is the deep pot for a cascade style bonsai. This is what we're talking about. Nice and deep, heavy to hold the weight of a tree cascading out of it. Here's an interesting one, made by an American artist. Beautiful, strong, perfect for the cascade. What about the semi-cascade? Let's look at some examples. Wow, there's tons of different styles for semi-cascade, but they all have one thing in common. They're squatty, they're slightly tall, and they're wide. They hold the weight, they look great. Look at this juniper semi-cascade. The pot is perfectly appropriate. Squatty, strong, earthenware, perfecto. Lastly, we have the bunjin style. Some folks call it literati. Everybody say bunjin. Here's some great shapes for the bunjin style. Especially the drum pot, top left. Very much used for the bunjin. This pot is called a nanban. It's kind of a rustic style. Looks nice with bonsai, bunjins, and they're a little bit hard to find. If you come across one, grab it. This bunjin is spectacular. Look at the size of that pot. How small. Very nicely done. On this tree we will stop part 2. Very nice having you along for the ride. Look for part 3 coming up real soon.